Scheduled council meeting. Good to see you all here this evening. Wish you a belated Independence Day celebration, July 3rd and 4th. Madam Clerk, is she available? Maybe not. I'll have her call the roll in just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to call on Councilmember Dellinger, who will do us the honor of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and also announcing our invocation, sir. Dan.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Bow your heads if you so choose. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, another wonderful day to serve this wonderful community we love. Give us the wisdom to grow this community in a vision that is bright for our future and great for the things that we love. Please also watch over those struggling with the COVID-19 virus, those that are caring for them and praying for them. Pray for them to give them strength as well. Thank you to bless all of our first responders who spend their time on the front lines battling this battle as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask the town clerk, if she will, at this time to call the roll.
Mayor Marchburn?
I am present.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer?
Here.
Councilmember Dellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Singleton? And Councilmember Vance?
Here.
Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Singleton maybe will be here a little later. I'm just not sure about that. Okay, following our agenda, we now will look at the area called petitions and comments. This portion of the meeting is to receive comments from the public on items not included in this agenda. Citizens should sign up with the town clerk to speak prior to the start of the meeting. The board is interested in hearing your concern but may not take action or deliberate on subject matters brought up during the petitions and comments section. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate town officials or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda. Good evening, sir. I have one person who has signed up under petitions and comments, and I would remind any of you who desire to appear before this body, if you will, try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes or so for the sake of time. Mr. Rodney Dale Stratton, if you will, sir, at this time, if you'd come to the podium and give us your name and address, sir, and we will hear your comments.
Thank you very much for hearing my comments.
Evening, sir.
Thank you. My main comment is I filed a police report, and it's about fireworks. And it's about mainly my neighbor who he lives there part-time sometimes. He lives in another place. So he invites 10 or 15 children, 10 other men and women to eat and dine right beside my house, 10 feet away. So they set off the fireworks. One rocket hits my front door. So I call the police. And like I said, I filed a report. That's only one issue with this neighbor. Other issues is fire pit and unleashed dogs. And it's been going on for years, and I'm fed up with it. I'm not going to take it anymore. Okay, I want justice here. All I want is my rights. When they impose on me and take over my rights, okay, people don't realize you get 10 to 15 children out there on the street, and they fire off these rockets and stuff. Not for 15 minutes, which is okay. Okay? 4th of July, no problem. You won't believe this, people. I'm talking about hours. Not 1, 2, or 3, or 4, but 5 hours. Bang, bang, bang. Scorching the street. I got pictures. I'm fed up with it. No more. The ordinance in here says unlawful. Skyrockets, unlawful. It's got to stop. They have more rights than I do. The police officer interviewed, he thinks it's the owner of my neighbor. It wasn't. I never saw the person in my life. I said, officer, you interviewed a person I never met in my life. Never saw him. And that's like every holiday or every other week, especially in the summertime, they come over, congregate. Come on over, no problem. 15, 20, 30 people, folks. I'm fed up with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
Address.
I'm sorry.
Address.
Get his address.
Yes. Do you live at 506 Longview Street, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we needed to record your address. It sounds like you took appropriate action. I think you said you met with the police department,
Yes,
and
sir.
I'll ask the town manager to
I
maybe...
have the records here, sir.
Okay, you hang on to those.
Yes, sir.
I'll ask the town manager to confer with the police department regarding your concerns. And from time to time, particularly this time of year, we sometimes have neighbors that are aggravating one another through fireworks and other things.
Yes,
But
sir.
we appreciate your concern, and we'll, if there was anything you wanted to mention, Ronnie?
Could he leave his phone number with the town clerk?
Okay, yeah, it's on this sheet, I
Yes,
believe.
it's on the sheet,
It
yes,
is,
sir.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have your,
May I say
Address and
one
phone
other
number.
thing before I leave?
if you would be fairly quick, sir.
Yeah, this is, like I said, it's got to stop, and I forgot my train of thought.
Okay, thank you.
I'm so upset about the whole thing. See, okay, excuse me. I live alone. I have no help. I got to take care of every situation, one situation at a time. I got dogs that come in my yard, do their business. I got the fire pit 10 feet from my house, going up in smoke and all this. Like I said,
Yes.
I live alone. I need help to just get this all sorted and straightened out, please. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see what we can do in terms of some follow-up. Thank you, sir, for coming
Mr.
out.
Marshman,
Thank you.
if I may make a comment.
Oh, yeah, Ms. Barringer?
I saw posts on Nextdoor over the weekend about the fireworks. I heard them because I don't live very far from there. And it was excessive, and the posts on Nextdoor indicated that there were some veterans living in the neighborhood that were being traumatized because they had PTSD, and the fireworks were scaring them. So we do understand and take seriously what you're saying, and we'll
I
look
don't have
into it.
PTSD, but I was abused as a child. I can't take a lot of noise. And the officer said, why don't you go in the other room? I said, so you want to limit my freedom?
We
No.
understand.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, well, that's the only person who actually signed up. Was there anyone else who desired to speak briefly to the council during this segment? If you do, please come to the podium and we'll give you your 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none or hearing none, we will go to the next section on the agenda, on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. What is your pleasure, council?
Mayor, move we adopt the agenda as presented. Second.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the adoption of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it is so ordered. Next is the consent agenda. There are 3 items there. Would entertain a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of adoption of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? No, and it is so ordered. I didn't actually forget an important part of the
Sure you didn't.
agenda, but I did skip over it for just a minute. So presentations is a time where we get to do a number of different things, and this evening we do have a presentation and a proclamation recognizing the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. Is Miss Wynn here? I bet she is. Okay, yeah, that's fine. If you want to come to the podium, I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Behringer if she will read this proclamation in honor of this occasion and present the proclamation to Miss Wynn.
Whereas the movement to enfranchise women began in July 1848 at a convention in Seneca Falls, New York, and whereas the women's suffrage movement led to the passage by Congress of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States in 1919 and was ratified by the states by the summer of 1920, and whereas the National Women's Suffrage Association dissolved in 1920 to create the League of Women Voters of the United States for the purpose of educating voters and registering women to vote. Whereas the League of Women Voters of Wake County first met on September 27, 1920, and whereas approximately 120,000 North Carolina women registered to vote for the November 1920 election, and whereas women today constitute a majority vote in North Carolina and in the United States, are running for office in greater numbers, and are more active in the election process than ever before in history. Now, therefore, the town of Garner recognizes the historic impact of the 19th Amendment on women's voting rights and on the civic life of women in our community in North Carolina and in the nation. And be it further resolved that the town of Garner recognizes the League of Women Voters of Wake County for their work to promote citizen engagement since their founding in 1920.
Thank you, Ms. Behringer. If you will, and Ms. Wynn, if you care to make any comments, we'll be happy to hear from you as well.
Great, thank you. I'm Diana Wynn, President of the League of Women Voters of Wake County. We are honored to be receiving this proclamation this evening, and I'm certainly honored to be accepting it on behalf of our many members here in Wake County. We knew this 2020 would be a big year when we started planning for it a couple years ago. It's the 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters. It's the centennial of the 19th Amendment. And we did not count on a pandemic that also made it a big year. And of course, it's a presidential election year, and those are always very busy years for the League of Women Voters. But I think that we can all take inspiration from those suffragists from 100 years ago. And remember that from 1918 right into 1920, they were also experiencing a pandemic. And in spite of those challenges, they persisted in their fight for their voting rights. And so 100 years later, the League of Women Voters continues to be committed to encouraging every eligible person to exercise their right to vote. Again, thank you for taking time out of your meeting and presenting the proclamation to the League. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Thank you. Just on a personal note, I want to thank you and the organization for the good job you do in keeping our citizens informed, particularly at election time. I was digging through some old materials and I found back when I was in campaign mode, the questionnaire that I received from your organization wanting to know something about me and some of my thoughts. And I think every election I have been in, we always receive something from the League of Women Voters. So you do a good job of keeping our elected officials on their toes, I think. And certainly this is a momentous occasion to recognize this anniversary of the organization. So thank you for what you do. If other council members want to make a brief statement, I'll be happy to let you do that at this time. I'll start with Mr. Matthews. Anything you want to say? No? Okay. Mr. Singleton?
Thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Mr. Dellinger?
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your efforts.
Okay, thanks again. Thank you, Ms. Behringer, for presenting that. Okay, we are now going to the item on our agenda under public hearings. And we have, I believe, one public hearing this evening. So in just a minute, I'm going to recognize Mr. David Banford. But before I do that, I'd like to read preliminary information that relates to and covers hearings of this type. So there are rules governing these hearings required by law that we must follow. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means it's more formal than other public hearings. Under state law, the parties are entitled to a fair hearing. I will now inquire of the council whether any member has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not subject to change, or have there been any ex parte communications or any close familial, business, or other associational relationship which might affect a person or a financial interest in the outcome. So, council members, any of you affected in such a way? Anybody?
No.
Ex parte? None? Okay, thank you very much. This is a fact-finding hearing, and appropriate sworn evidence must be presented as the basis for whatever decision the town council makes. Opinion testimony is not appropriate factual evidence unless the witness is a recognized expert on the subject. Therefore, opinion testimony concerning such things as impacts on land values, traffic safety, or noise levels should be avoided unless the witness is a recognized expert based on training and experience. You are permitted to ask questions of other speakers concerning their factual testimony. Council members are only allowed to receive factual information about the cases in this hearing and are not allowed to discuss the cases outside of this hearing. And for those of you who will be speaking, we ask you to honor limits and be respectful of everyone's time. At this point, I will call forth any witnesses who expect to testify in this case. Did I say witnesses? Any persons who wish to testify in this case, if you will go and be sworn by the town clerk at this time.
Jeff, are you able to hear me? Mr. Triesenberg?
Is Mr. Triesenberg with us virtually?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, although we are having some difficulties with the feed, and so that's what Rick is working on, and he may not be able to hear at this moment.
Yeah, he's saying he can't, yeah.
Okay, so if you could raise your right hand,
No,
please.
I am not. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Mr. Triesenberg.
Do you solemnly, sincerely, truly declare and affirm that the evidence you provide is the truth, the whole
No, we're still having issues.
I will go
I
swear
think we
Jeff
can hear
in
him
on
and he
the
can't hear
telephone.
us.
Someone just say I do.
What is this? Rick's on the phone with him, I believe.
Okay, Mr. He cannot hear us, is that right?
Yeah, I think he probably can hear you, but it may be on a delay through the Facebook feed and not instantaneous through the
Okay.
Teams feed, which we're working on trying to fix. So he probably can hear you, but there'd be about a 10-second gap.
Okay,
He's our primary presenter on the case, so
Right.
if we need to, we'll be
okay, I think we can proceed with the hearing at this time. I had Mr. Banford down as the presenter, but, well, there he is, yeah, thank you, I'm sorry.
Snuck up here.
So, okay, Mr. Banford, you are up to present the town's report as it relates to the zoning and the conditional use.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This is a planned residential development request. This has a rezoning component and a master plan application. The property is approximately 77.01 acres in size. The Planning Commission did hear this request at their meeting on May the 18th and did recommend approval. The property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Rayner Road and White Oak Road. This is a vicinity map of the rezoning site. It's highlighted in yellow. Rayner Road runs along the western boundary of the site. White Oak Road runs along the southern boundary of the site. The predominant use in this area is a mix of office, warehouse, industrial to the north, where White Oak Business Park is located. South of the business park, the predominant use is residential, single family. This is a Google Street View of the rezoning site looking north on Rayner Road. Rayner Road is located along the left side or west side of the property, and the rezoning site is located here. The zoning of the property is R20 residential, which is single family. Zoning to the north, where White Oak Business Park is located, is mixed use district. There's also some heavy industrial I-2 located farther north in this dark gray color. To the east is Wake County zoning R30, which is outside of our ETJ. It's not colored on this map. To the south is also Wake County zoning R30. To the west is Town of Garner R20 single family. We also have some R40 single family as well, the light green color. I'll also point out on this map, this shows the proposed NC 540 corridor that will cross over White Oak Road and cut through a portion of the site. This is a list of rezoning cases in this area of Garner. White Oak Business Park was rezoned in 1988. Since that time, we've had several zoning cases, predominantly in the business park. The most recent case was last year, where we had a zoning case on Bricksteel Lane, where they wanted outdoor storage and had to rezone the site and change the zoning conditions. Also to note is Garner did an ETJ expansion in 2017, and that is this case here, Z1701. And this brought in some of this area into our jurisdiction, including this rezoning site. Again, the existing zonings are 20. Minimum lot size allowed is 20,000 square feet, and the density is around 2.18 units per acre. That's under the current zoning. The requested zoning is Planned Residential Development Conditional Use District 9, and this would provide a mix of housing options, including townhomes and single family. This case went before the Planning Commission last year. At that time, the proposal included 84.54 acres with a total of 333 units total. The breakdown was 105 single-family and 228 townhome units. And this was at a density of 3.9 units per acre. And the zoning conditions would allow up to 4 units per acre. Since that time, the applicant has modified the request to remove approximately 7 acres from the request. This is the portion of land on the east side of the proposed NC 540. That area was originally included in the project site, and now the plan is to remove that acreage. And so that does change the density. And they also made some minor modifications to the breakout of single-family and townhomes. So 333 units total are proposed, so the total number of units has not changed. Now, 126 single-family units are proposed instead of the original 105, and 207 townhome units are proposed instead of the original 228. And because that acreage was removed from the project area, the density went up slightly from 3.9 to 4.32. The zoning conditions state that the maximum density would be 4.4 units per acre. So the total number of units hasn't changed. The density has changed slightly because some acreage of the site has been removed from the project. Because there was a density change, this was sent back to the Planning Commission a second time, and so they did review this and recommend approval. The following slides are the proposed zoning conditions for this project. Permissible uses would be townhomes and single family. The next condition has to deal with the maximum density, which shall not exceed 4.4 units per acre without modifications to the master plan. Number 4, the applicant is requesting some deviations in lot sizes and lot percentages. This is allowed under the PRD option. They are requesting permitted deviations allowing for 3,000 square foot minimum single-family lot sizes and 1,600 square foot townhome lot sizes are proposed. Number 5, deviations in building setbacks are also requested, and this is again allowed under the PRD development option. Proposed setbacks for detached front-loaded single-family lots are as follows. Front setback would be 20 feet, rear 15 feet, side 3 feet with a minimum aggregate of 6 feet. Then the setback along a public right-of-way or corner side would be 8 foot minimum. Proposed setbacks for detached rear-loaded single-family lots are as follows. Front setback 5 feet, rear 4 feet or 20 foot minimum, side 3 foot, minimum 6 feet, aggregate. Corner side along a public right-of-way would be 8 foot minimum. For the attached townhomes, the lot setbacks are as follows. Front 5 feet minimum, rear 4 feet or 20 feet minimum, side 5 feet minimum for in units, and then the corner side along a public right-of-way would be 8 foot minimum. Reduced setbacks enable smaller lot sizes and a mix of home types while still preserving open space for amenities and creating a more walkable community. Number 6, a neighborhood recreation amenity shall include a minimum 750 square foot swimming pool and a minimum 800 square foot pole building facility. Number 7, each townhome will have a minimum heated area of 1,200 square feet, and each single family home will have a minimum heated square footage of 1,700. Number 8, all rear-loaded single-family homes shall have a front porch, minimum 48 square feet. Number 9, all single-family homes shall have an outdoor patio or deck, minimum 80 square feet. Number 10, all homes shall have shutters or window trim wrap. 11, all homes shall have masonry or textured finish treatment for foundations. 12, all rear-loaded homes shall have driveway access on an alley. 13, and homeowners association shall be created for the development. 14, all homes shall have roof eaves with a minimum 8-inch overhang on all sides. 15, the front elevation of all residential dwellings shall comply with either A or B below. A minimum of 40 square feet masonry trim, stone, brick. This will include any exposed foundation to a minimum of 12 inches in height. Masonry, column, bases, wainscoting, or other configurations of masonry. B, the front elevation of all residential dwellings that do not meet the minimum square footage of masonry trim shall have at least one of the following features: board and batten, shake siding, or second-story porch, and at least one of the following features: gable, window, dormers, decorative window cap, pediment, front door, transom, or side light window. Having 2 items from the first list in lieu of 1 from each list will meet this architectural requirement. 16, front elevation windows that are not set in masonry trim shall have shutters, additional trim board, or other detail features. 17, side and rear elevations are not required to have additional materials and can be 100% vinyl materials. Any exposed portion of concrete, foundation, or slab must be either wrapped with masonry veneer, brick, or stone on all sides, or must be painted in parts with a textured cementitious coating. 19, minimum 50% of all townhomes and all single-family units will have a garage. 20, townhome sidewalls that face a public street shall meet at least one of the following requirements. A, at least 1 window in hip roof treatment, or B, at least 3 windows, each with 4-inch window trim or shutters. Staff has expressed some concerns during the review of the proposed zoning conditions. The applicant was given some recommendations and opted not to include those. We'll be happy to answer any questions on that. Traffic. The site has frontage on Rayner Road and White Oak Road. Both of those are NCDOT maintained roads. This chart shows the annual average daily traffic counts from 2007 to 2017. White Oak Road does have some traffic data in even number years to 2018. 2-lane roads, White Oak and Rayner Road in this area have an estimated capacity of 10,000 daily trips. As dedicated turn lanes are added and approach having a continuous center lane, the estimated capacity increases to between 13,000 and 18,000 daily trips. Moving to the Garner Forward Long Range Plan, we're going to look at the future land use map and then some guiding principles. The future land use map designates this site as mixed density residential neighborhood. In this category, does encourage mixing single-family townhomes or apartments at both medium and high densities. Medium density would be 2.5 to 5 units an acre, and high density would be over 5 units an acre. On the plan, to the north, you have White Oak Business Park. That's shown as light industrial in the light purple. To the west, the long-range plan has low-density residential. These are single-family neighborhoods that are developed without water and sewer, so they have larger lots. And again, this map does show the proposed NC 540 outer loop going through the site. And again, this portion here to the east is the acreage that has been removed off of the project site from when it was originally submitted last year. Moving to the guiding principles of the long-range plan. The first one is living spaces, which is discussed on pages 63 through 68. Staff finds that this request is in support of the following. Number one, Garner recognizes that its housing stock is aging and that it could be more diverse to attract younger residents and retain older ones, page 63. This zone diversifies lot sizes, incorporates alley, rear garage products, and provides exterior maintenance-free choices for owners. Number two, the younger and older residents, millennials and boomers, share many of the same desires in a living space, proximity to shopping and services, and appreciation for greenways and fun places to gather. Page 63. This zoning district provides over 1.5 mile of private off-street trails, as well as 3 mini parks and a neighborhood community swimming pool. In greenfield areas, favoring larger master plan tracts helps to maximize private contributions and amenities, which is also a recommended practice, page 64. This zoning district provides over 1.5 miles of private trails, paths, greenways, as well as active and passive recreational amenities and improvements in 3 mini parks, a larger neighborhood park, and a community swimming pool. Mixing housing types within a development allows the proposed townhomes and single-family detached homes to live compatibly as they are clustered and share similar design characteristics, page 65. This zone clusters the townhomes in the Creekside district with single-family in the Ridgefield district surrounding the neighborhood park and swimming pool. HOA maintained buffer space is included against the future NC 540 interstate. Moving from living spaces to the recreational opportunities, guiding principles, which is discussed on page 76 to 82 in the long-range plan. Number one, in addition to large projects, small parklets and small connections between neighborhoods should be priorities to soften perspectives and communicate a human scale for pedestrians, page 76. This zone offers sidewalk and trail connections throughout the development along internal streets, linking all parts of the neighborhood to mini parks in the larger neighborhood park. Number two, a stated purpose of the PRD zone is to conserve and preserve natural features and green space, which is a recommended practice for promoting recreation opportunities, page 77. This zone provides for approximately 23 acres of open space for conservation for both passive and active recreation. 3, parks play a vital role in neighborhood life, providing a place for children to play and residents to meet. This includes pocket parks, areas of a 1/4 acre or less, page 78. This zone provides for at least 3 standalone mini parks and 1 neighborhood park interconnected by trails and sidewalks. Moving on to the zoning consistency statement. This requested rezoning from single-family R20 to plain residential conditional use District 9 is consistent with the 2018 Garner Forward Plan's future land use map, and it's also consistent with the guiding principles for living spaces and recreational opportunities. And the proposal is also within the recommended density for medium density residential land use. So medium density is 2.5 to 5, and this proposal is around 4. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Stacy will give the presentation on the details of the master plan. Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mr. Bamford, and I'll recognize council members for any questions or comments. Mr. Singleton.
David, on the slide before the traffic counts, there was something noted. I'll let you pull it up. Staff, there you go. Staff expressed concerns during the review of the proposed zoning conditions. Can you expand upon the concerns expressed by staff?
Okay. Jeff can probably respond to that better than I can, but there was some things that were suggested during the review that they chose not to incorporate in the plan. So that's the general answer, and then Jeff can give you more of the details.
If he can give us some more, I sure would appreciate hearing those concerns that were not, the recommendations that were not accepted. Yes, sir.
So there were generally 2 items that we brought to their attention. The first generally, we as staff do not support setbacks less than 5 feet on the side. If the builder Hello?
We can hear you well, Jeff.
Yeah, we were hearing you.
Okay. All right, sorry. Yeah, so generally we do not support side setbacks of less than 5 feet if the intended building material is expected to be vinyl. There's other jurisdictions that have similar type requirements. Maybe requirements is encouraging folks to go in that direction. Vinyl, if it does catch fire, has a fire availability rating. And we've seen in the area where there have been some fires in the past, in the neighborhood where single-family homes that close together, one fire, it tends to move very rapidly. By building code, 6 feet is allowed. It's just not our professional opinion that that's probably wise for general public safety. So that was mentioned. And the other issue was related to foundations. We advised them that typically there's some kind of masonry requirement for foundations. The way the condition is currently worded is that the entire foundation could just be parged and painted. So again, we just wanted to let them know that you all as a council had not approved anything like that before. So that they should be prepared to discuss these items with you.
Hey, Jeff, you stated that the code allows 3 feet, 3 feet separation, but we have encouraged 5 feet due to the threat of if a fire, because of the threat of fire easily going from one unit to another, being that close together with vinyl siding.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And the foundation, could you state that again, please, about the foundations?
Sure. So if you read their conditions, the condition that they've offered up is that the foundation can either be finished with masonry or it can be parged and painted. Parging is just a cement finish that looks kind of like stucco if it's done right. Typically, though, in all the other developments that have come before council, there's always been a requirement that at least the front and quite often the sides be finished with masonry. Sometimes the sides have been allowed to be parged and painted if they're not substantial. typically less than 12 inches high, being exposed. So again, we just let them know that council has not previously approved that type of condition which someone could just carbs and paint only.
Okay, Jeff, thank you so much for your assistance with that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sinklin. Mr. Matthews, you have anything? Okay, I'll go to my right. Ms. Behringer, any questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Dellinger.
some questions. So the PR, you said the building code, the minimum is 3. A PRD is subject to, in section 6.1, the R12 setbacks. Is that correct?
R12 is used as the reference point.
So the R12, which is the standard in our UDO, is 6 feet. Is that correct?
It is a 15-foot X.
So 6 minimum, 15 combo. So their proposal was lower than what's in the UDO, so looking for a deviation on that. And I looked at the minutes from the first time this went before the Planning Commission, and also watched the second time it did, which caused me to go back to the first. And my understanding is that the first time it went to Planning Commission, they passed it unanimously. However, they included an amendment that the minimum setbacks be 5 feet and 10 feet combined. They passed it with that amendment. And then they made some change here to not having the open space on the other side of 540, and it came back to the Planning Commission again because the density had changed. They did the same thing, went through with the adjustment, passed it unanimously, but again, added an amendment recommending that these setbacks be 5 and 10 feet. So my question is, why did this applicant not make any effort to follow the Planning Commission's recommendation, which is actually in guidance with our UDO?
I think the applicant would have to answer that. I do believe that they feel that the majority of their house plans will result in a large setback. The fact remains that the minimum that they're shown is 3 feet, not 6 feet. That's why the staff wanted to point out that it's still a concern.
And also on the setbacks, if that R12 is the standard, the front yard setback is 30 feet, which I guess is probably from me to that wall approximately. And they want, on the proposed rear load, they want 5 feet. On the townhomes, they want 5 feet, which is closer than you're supposed to be social distancing. That's a big deviation. Period.
So that kind of front setback is your typical traditional design. You do move the garage to the rear and you put more eyes off the street, your front porch. So that's not that type of design style, which is what. But again, that's within your discretion to discuss with them further.
And my other question was related to the presentation where it said in the land use plan that mixed density residential was the recommended use for that land area. The final slide it says high density is over 5 an acre, so mixed use would include that. Yet the conclusion by recommendation by staff was that it's in compliance or within our guidance, yet there is nothing of that density within the existing plan. So I mean, what I'm looking at is a project that is having to modify this zoning condition, this PRD, to such an extent that it doesn't even really meet the original purpose of the PRD. There's a lot of setback deviations that are being requested, and that's all I have for right now.
Okay, Mr. Vance.
Yes. Mr. Triesenberg, in reference to the type of siding that's being used for the for this project, I heard you say that vinyl siding, and with the distance that is being set apart, can be potentially a issue when it comes to if one dwelling is jeopardized by fire, then possibly leaping over because of the type of material that's being used. And that's vinyl siding. Was any other siding recommended that is less flammable?
We certainly discussed cementous fiberboard, which is also known as hardy plank.
Mm-hmm.
That is a slightly more expensive product, but it does have a higher resistance to.
So hardy plank was mentioned as a possible siding for this project. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm finished, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody else for Mr. Bamford or Mr. Triesenberg? Questions?
I have one more question. Did they ever present to Planning Commission or staff a layout that had this 5 and 10 foot setbacks? Or were they always on that 3 foot setback?
I do not believe we've ever seen anything just completely with the 5 foot side setback total. Again, we did discuss the fact that they felt most of their floor plans would result in a 5 or 10 foot aggregate. It's just there's a few where if they're placed side by side, depending again on which house style the buyer chooses to go with, they may have situations where it does get closer than 10. So I would encourage you to discuss that with you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions for this witness?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a comment. I serve as the liaison to the Garner Fire Department, and I have heard many, many times about the dangers of vinyl siding burning quickly whenever you have units in close proximity. So that would be a big concern for me.
Okay. If there are no other questions for Mr. Bamford, let me see. Do we have the applicant who wants to testify at this time, or do we do that after we hear the other portion of this? Yes.
And do it all.
Okay. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Again, I will be here for the subdivision plan conformity portion of this PRD. Again, we're talking about 77.01 acres and 333 units. You see the breakdown there, 126 single-family and 207 townhomes. The minimum lot size for the townhouses would be 1,600 square feet, and the minimum lot size for single-family would be 3,000 square feet. David has gone over all of the setbacks with you. There would be a 25-foot perimeter setback around the whole development, as is standard with PRDs. The tree coverage of 12% is being met with preserved plant material. The plan states that they'll meet at least 12.5%, but the target tree cover is 13.1%. There is a 25-foot perimeter setback, as we stated, and in addition, the plan does show a 50-foot planted buffer along the I-540 corridor. The street buffers are planted along Rayner Road and White Oak Road, and there's street trees provided every 40 foot on average on all interior streets, but not on the alleys, as they're not required on alleys. There's 25% open space required on a PRD. That, in this case, that would be 19.25 acres. They are providing 30% as a minimum or 23 acres, with a target of up to 39% open space. The plan does include 1,929 linear feet of public greenway, 1,578 feet of a multi-use path, and 4,668 linear feet of private asphalt trails. There's also a neighborhood park with a pool and shelter and 3 mini parks scattered throughout the subdivision. The inspections department, together with the fire department, has reviewed and approved this plan. The northern and eastern edges of the site are within a FEMA-designated floodplain. The site is also impacted by riparian buffers, and these are shown on the master plan as well. This site is subject to stormwater quality regulations for nitrogen, as well as quantity requirements for detention of the 1, 10, and 25-year storms. There are 3 stormwater devices planned for the subdivision that will reduce the nitrogen loading below the threshold of 6 pounds per acre per year for single-family homes and 10 pounds per acre per year for townhomes. A nitrogen offset payment will be required. The site will be served by City of Raleigh water and sewer infrastructure through existing services on Rayner Road. As far as roads and sidewalks, the site has about 2,500 linear feet of frontage on Rayner Road, half of which will be widened with curb, sidewalk, and gutter to be added. The site also has 690 feet of frontage along White Oak Road. The southern portion will be converted to a local street there. 10 feet of right-of-way will be dedicated for the future Rayner Road realignment, and a signal warrant analysis will be performed at White Oak Road and Rayner Road. The traffic impact analysis stated that the development would add 2,872 daily trips. That's total inbound and outbound. And you see the AM peak hour and the PM peak hour projections there. NCDOT recommended improvements include constructing a 100-foot exclusive left-hand turn lane on eastbound White Oak Road at Rayner Road, constructing an exclusive northbound right turn lane on Rayner Road into the southern site entrance, providing 50 feet of full-width storage, and constructing an exclusive northbound right turn lane on Rayner Road into the northern site entrance, providing 50 feet of full-width storage. To construct an exclusive southbound right turn lane on Rayner Road into the northern site entrance, providing 50 feet of full-width storage. Perform a signal warrant analysis once school is back in session to determine if a signal is warranted at project build-out. Pending the outcome of the signal warrant analysis, the developer is committed to constructing a traffic signal. If the signal is not warranted at this location based on the warrant analysis, the developer has committed to a fee in lieu in the amount of $60,000, which is the estimated cost of construction of the signal. There is a look at the site plan. We did point out the single family is the orangish color, with the purple color being the townhomes. There's a mini park at the very northern section. You see that circular little icon there, as well as on the eastern portion near the 540 corridor and on the southern portion down near White Oak Road. The pool and pool house, where the mail kiosk will also be located, is located in the kind of the center of the development, as you see pointed out there as well. The parking would be required 52 guest spaces, which is 1 for every 4 residential townhouse units, and that will be reviewed at their preliminary plat stage. Lighting, both street and parking lot lighting will be reviewed for compliance prior to approval of the preliminary plat. For site plan conformity with the transportation plan, the 2018 Garner Forward Transportation Plan does not contain any updated recommendations for Rayner Road. Therefore, the 2010 Garner Transportation Plan is referenced. That recommends Rayner Road as a 3-lane minor thoroughfare. The 2018 plan recommends White Oak Road be widened to a 4-lane divided facility, and it also recommends a public greenway along White Oak Creek, with the proposed road improvements being coordinated with the 540 improvements and the incorporation of the public greenway. This project, as proposed, may be found in conformity with the Garner Forward Transportation Plan. The review of the Parks and Recreation, Open Space, and Greenways Master Plan revealed no additional recommendations in the project area. Therefore, with the inclusion of the proposed public greenway, this project may be found in conformity with the Parks and Recreation, Open Space, and Greenways Master Plan. After sufficient review and plan revisions, staff finds that this project as now proposed conforms to the regulations of the Unified Development Ordinance, so long as the following project-specific conditions are met. Prior to receipt of approved plans, the engineering department inspection fees must be paid to the town of Garner. Prior to preliminary plat application, the developer shall perform a signal warrant analysis for the intersection of White Oak Road and Rayner Road. If a signal is deemed warranted, the developer shall be responsible for the design and installation of the signal. If a signal is not yet warranted, a development agreement for fee in lieu of a new signal agreed upon as a result of the development's TIA shall be submitted by the developer, including payment, and accepted by the town. Prior to recordation of the first final plat, a voluntary annexation petition for the entire project site shall be filed with the Garner Planning Department, and documents establishing a homeowners association and restrictive covenants shall be submitted to the planning director for review. Following the recordation of the first final plat, the neighborhood recreation amenities shall be completed within 18 months or prior to recordation of the second phase final plat, whichever comes first. Prior to issuance of the first building permit, all applicable water and sewer fees must be paid to the City of Raleigh Public Utilities Department, and the Stormwater Program Administrator shall be in receipt of proof of payment for the required nitrogen offset payment to an approved mitigation bank. Prior to recording of the final plat for each phase, many parks and trails in the preceding phase shall be complete. And prior to issuance of the first certificate of occupancy in the final phase, many parks and trails in said final phase shall be complete. Prior to issuance of each building permit, any outstanding fee in lieu of parkland dedication following dedication of the public greenway easements shall be paid to the town of Garner, and the developer shall be responsible for all roadway improvements required by NCDOT. There you have the proposed motions starting on page 54 of your packet. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I can also minimize this if you like and get back to Mr. Triesenberg on the screen.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for this witness, council members? Down this way.
I have some questions on the traffic.
That I am going to minimize for and get Mr. Triesenberg back on the screens because he'll address the transportation portion. Let me get him pulled up here for you. Or at least I think. There he is.
Mr. Triesenberg, so the numbers that were presented are on White Oak in 2018, there were 12,000 trips, or trips with a 10,000 capacity, maximum capacity. So in 2018, that road was already over capacity. So that 1250 doesn't include the anticipated increase by those apartments that were approved last year south of Target. Is that correct?
I would have to go back and look at that one. I thought that that had everything that one may have come in later than what
Because the 2018 is a measured number, is that correct? So it wouldn't include the projected number that would be generated by that apartment complex that was approved last year, which was, it was a couple thousand on top. So already on White Oak, you're at 14 or 15,000. This may be split half Rainer, half White Oak. Then my other question on transportation is, it says that it conforms to the Garner Transportation Plan, the 2018 plan, because White Oak Road, there is a recommendation that White Oak Road be widened to a 4-lane divided facility. However, there aren't any actual plans to do that work right now, are there?
What I understand from discussions with MCDOT, these are both, they prefer to go ahead and postpone any widenings on White Oak. One, the parcel doesn't have a whole lot of frontage on White Oak, and two, it's directly across the future interchange with 5 feet. They prefer to go ahead and make those improvements to White Oak as part of the 540 project, so that would not be improvements done that they would have to rip up and redo. To that end, though, originally they were not required to do traffic analysis at the intersection. So the developer did agree to go ahead and perform that signal or an analysis back in. So that's something they offered to do, and that was kind of above and beyond what the original proposal was. I imagine that was probably going to get also a bit of give and take back and forth.
And so the capacity issues on White Oak already exist, and the time frame in the Garner 2018 transportation plan put those improvements on a 2035 time frame. So there would be no widening of White Oak Road to alleviate congestion for another 15 years. The question on the 540, what's the best estimate for the completion of 540 around that area? I think I read somewhere 2029, but I'm not sure if that's accurate.
That sounds about right. Most recent, I think that 2028, they have just been recently back to 2029. But that is about right.
My other question is on Rainer Road, and what it says here is that Rainer Road isn't mentioned in the 2018 plan, so it went back to the 2010 plan and said it's going to be a 3-lane minor thoroughfare, and so therefore it's, complies with our plan, but Rainer Road isn't even mentioned in the 2018 plan, which was a partial revision of the 2010 plan, ostensibly to update and reprioritize the thoroughfares and corridors. So it almost seems like their improvements to Rainer Road are pushed back even further into not even being on our long-range plan now. Is that correct?
So the improvements to Rainer Road, the widening, those would still stand according to the 2010 plan. When we did the 2018, it was to update certain parts of the plan, and we chose 10 corridors to focus on. Rainer Road happened not to be one of those, so we carry those recommendations forward into the current plan. The way Rainer Road will be realigned as part of the 540, they are going to be widening their half Rainer Road, because they will be needing to put in turn lanes and storage for those turn lanes, which eventually becomes basically the center turn lane. So between that, they are doing their half of the required widening to get that 3-lane section in the future.
And what would be the proposed time frame for the full widening of Rainer Road? to 70?
So again, that be entirely dependent on DOT, apart from what we can get through developer requirements to improve their frontage. So most of it through the White Oak Business Park in Greenfield is already widened. So it's really just the part south of Lone Creek, coming back up the hill past this development and the neighborhood on the other side.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here? Did I miss? Yes, Mr. Matthews.
In regards to Rayner Road and White Oak Road, looking at the project, it appears, unless I'm mistaken, most of the, or all of the entryways into this project are on Rayner Road. Is that, am I looking at that correct? Okay. And it might have been written here and I totally missed it, but we're talking about traffic, everything's White Oak, White Oak. Is there a reason to know what percentage will these people use might be? I'm very familiar with that area, to go right up Rayner Road right into 70, right over to I-40, rather than go all the way up White Oak. Is there a reason to think that much traffic is going to be on White Oak, or how much is going to be on Rayner Road? Have we run those numbers, I guess, and maybe I might have missed them.
No, that's okay. Those details are actually in the traffic impact analysis, and I believe that the applicant has a traffic engineer there tonight that can speak exactly to those breakdowns that were proposed and reviewed and approved by DOT. I want to say that it's about a 60-40 split, maybe, with 60% of the traffic going to Rayner and maybe 40% going to White Oak. I could be off. And some of that will depend, too, on 540 opening the interchange. Certainly, once that opens, then the traffic patterns have a much bigger potential to change.
And that 540, I'm familiar with the other way. So is White Oak actually going to be a exit off 540 at that intersection there?
Yes.
That changes everything. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other, it sounds like we need to get the applicant here who can maybe answer some of these questions. Anybody have any other questions for Stacy?
No, but I think it's important to remember, as traffic moves forward and goes toward the White Oak Shopping Center on White Oak Road, that the section of White Oak Road between Timber Drive and 70 is bumping 25,000 trips a day. Just remember that. When we talk about numbers, that dwarfs all of this, but that's where all the activity's going. But between Timber and 70 is about 25,000 trips a day. And it is a 2-lane divided median. It can currently handle it, but that's just a number to remember.
Okay, anybody else for Stacy?
One quick question,
Okay, one
and this
more.
might be for Stacy or Jeff. When I go to IMAPS, the GIS, when I do an overlay for 540, what am I looking at?
You are looking at the future right-of-way. That should be what you see. Can't recall if IMAX just has the dashed line, or if they've actually updated that with the right-of-way. What you see in our map for the staff report actually shows the right-of-way and the center lines of the right-of-way as currently.
I think, Mr. Dillinger, doesn't it have the blue outlines?
Yes.
It's got the right-of-way on there, Jeff.
So I looked at IMAP today and overlaid that right-of-way over this project. And what I see is that the right-of-way cuts this whole southern part of this site plan out. And these improvements of Rayner Road, a realignment here on White Oak, cut into a bunch of the lots on this side of the road. That's why I'm not
Yeah, they might
sure.
can speak to that a little better, but it could be that the right-of-way is off a little bit on the IMAPs too, so.
Someone should probably look at it.
Yeah,
because
I think
it's
they've had
very
discussions.
It's very significant. And it aligns on White Oak, and it aligns along the realignment area. But if that blue line is the right-of-way, there's a significant portion of this project that is in the right-of-way.
Yeah, the applicant might be able to speak to that a little bit more. There's been different versions of that, and it could be that we're working off of a newer version, but I do know that that has been carefully vetted with DOT to make sure that the improvements and what they're actually developing is all being coordinated.
Okay. Any other questions for Stacy? Okay, hearing none. Let's see, we want to hear from the applicant or others who have been sworn and who want to testify at this time. If you will, state your name and address, please, sir.
Good evening. First of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to take this mask off for a couple minutes. Good evening. My name's Brad Hart. I'm with Withers Ravenel Incorporated, 115 McKeenan Drive, Cary, North Carolina. I'm a North Carolina registered professional engineer and senior project manager with Withers Ravenel. And with me here this evening are Mr. Chris Simmering with Mungo Homes, who's the developer builder, Cole Degger Hart with Exalt Engineering, transportation consultant, and Jason Barron with Morningstar Law, land use attorney. So really, if I could just do a couple of quick or brief follow-up comments from, in addition to staff's detailed presentation, and then after that, I'd be glad to maybe hit on the 2 or 3 other things that were brought up earlier: setbacks, foundation treatment, 540 right-of-way.
Okay.
So we think we've got it's a great project in the right location. It's consistent with the goals of the Garner Forward Plan, supporting and adhering to the housing goals, the recreation goals, and maximizing I-540 as an asset, which is a stated goal in the plan as well, by concentrating density there to that readily accessible infrastructure. As far as transportation improvements, the project has been designed to account for the plans for 540 that include the improvements to White Oak and then the partial realignment to Rayner Road early on, and then later on in the project. Early on, we got a copy of the latest plans from the Turnpike Authority, who's in charge of the design, and we also met with NCDOT and confirmed all that in our access locations and made sure that we were respecting the correct right-of-way acquisition lines and realignment areas. Later on, before we got to a more detailed design of the project and before planning board we also reconfirmed with the Turnpike Authority that we had the correct plans, and we did. So I'm not sure of the exact lines that you're looking at on iMaps, but I'm confident that we've done our research and adhering to the right plans, and so I'm not sure if that's an approximate line on GIS or what, so I'm not sure that I can answer that myself. So just a few, Stacy hit on the transportation improvements, turn lanes at the accesses, turn lane at White Oak and Rayner, a commitment to fund a traffic signal, either if it's needed in the shorter term or funding it financially for a future term. Some of the enhanced neighborhood features that we've got: connected system of open space with trails exceeding the UDO open space requirements, about 1.5 miles of pedestrian and greenway trails, centralized neighborhood park with a swimming pool, 3 additional neighborhood mini parks. All the residences are subject to architectural guidelines that are outlined in the PRD booklet. All the townhomes will be rear loaded. We've got an enhanced primary entrance road section that's median divided with landscaping and entry monumentation. There'll also be monumentation and landscaping at the southern secondary entrance. Regarding, if I could, I'll just jump into the other items of discussion, like the side setbacks and foundation treatments that were topic of discussion. So the issue with 3-foot minimum side setbacks, first of all, We have, knowing that that was a big topic of discussion at the Planning Commission, we have gone back and looked at the plan, and what we would like to request and offer is that with regard to the more traditional front-load single-family product, that we could do 5-foot minimum, 10-foot aggregate side setbacks there, which is sort of in line with what you would see in other developments for more traditional front-load. On the rear-load product, which is the narrower Charleston-style product with the alleys, we would request being allowed to do the 3-foot minimum, 6 aggregate, because it adheres to fire code, and for purposes of designing the plan, what we've done is those lot widths are designed so that there's a little bit of extra wiggle room on top of a minimum 6-foot aggregate for the widest product of that nature that Mungo Homes offers. So the only time that the houses would actually be a little over 6 feet apart, they would never be exactly, they would always be a little bit more. The only time that they would be about 6 feet apart would be when you had adjacent neighbors that had, home buyers that had purchased the widest of the products offered. So some of the product on the narrower end is up to about 6 feet narrower than the wider. So if you put the narrowest one on there, it would end up with about 5.5 on both sides. So not knowing what the homeowners are going to choose in that offering, by agreeing to bigger setbacks, what we would end up, we feel like doing is let's say if half or 2/3 of them are not chosen to be the widest house, then they would be even further apart. So, you know, we're glad to continue discussing that, but just wanted to share what our thoughts were on it. Regarding foundation treatment, so we, amongst a lot of the back and forth with staff and hearing their requests on that and masonry versus parged and painted, so we do have a requirement that regardless of the height of the exposed foundation, any part of exposed foundation would be at least parged and painted or veneered with masonry. And what we've also committed to in the PRD book is that any portion of the foundation that's exposed 12 inches or more would actually be treated with veneer, brick veneer or masonry veneer across the front. So, and part of that, our thinking was that, one, if less than 12 inches is exposed, you're really not going to see it anyway between the yard, the foundation plantings that go in front. And if it's higher than 12 inches exposed, then it would be masonry veneered on the front. And then also, so Chris, I'm sure, could be glad to come up and talk about the architecture and those elements, and Cole can talk about traffic and that stuff. So any questions you guys got, glad to try and answer them.
Questions for Mr. Scott Hart, excuse me. It's got on my mind. Okay, hearing none.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. In reference to the revisions that you are proposing, would it be too much to ask for to see that schematic and the difference and how that will lay out in the plans, possibly?
I mean, with regard to the side setbacks?
Yes, the revisions, yes, just the distance apart, but you're still recommending vinyl siding instead of some other non-flammable, less flammable siding. Okay, all right, and well, the initial side, right here, the initial siding setbacks you were recommending was what?
So, from day one, we've always requested 3-foot minimum and 6-foot aggregate side setbacks for all of the single-family lots. Up until this point where we have gone back and looked at it, and now we're requesting, we'd like to agree to provide the 5-foot minimum, 10-foot aggregate on the front load single family, which is about 2/3 of all the single family, but for the 1/3 that's the Charleston style, we would respectfully like to continue requesting the 3-foot. Sorry,
You said front-loaded? The front-loaded one, okay.
The front-loaded, we could accommodate the 5-foot minimum, 10 aggregate Go ahead, Chris, sorry.
And before you leave, Mr. Hart, you said the front loaded. Now you respectfully ask what?
That for the rear loaded units, that we be allowed to use 3-foot, minimum 6-foot aggregate. And we're glad to continue discussing that as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay,
Tell
next
Chris is
question.
wanting to say something.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Chris Simmering with Mungo Homes. I'm the Vice President of Land Development. I wanted to say that we're very excited about this project, and it is very intentionally the way that it is. And it is very much designed after the Renaissance Park subdivision. And I wanted to say that because you asked, could we see a schematic? You can see it there in Renaissance Park. If you don't know, we were a builder there, and the product we're building in this subdivision is there. It's actually called our Renaissance product. We designed it for the Renaissance Park subdivision, and we're going to build it again here. It's a very traditional Charleston style row home, and they are designed, and our architects are very adamant that they look best close together. As you start to widen them apart, they start to look narrow and tall and a little bit more awkward. We find that this is very efficient for the market today. People are looking for not owning land, no maintenance. That's what they want. They want to not have areas to maintain. They prefer common areas, and it helps very much drive down the cost of the unit. That's also why we have chosen the vinyl siding, whereas the hardy plank is a maintenance required product. You have to caulk it and paint it. Vinyl is not. You just wash it. It's a no maintenance product. We're not talking about the old school maintenance vinyl siding that you used to see that gets all wavy. We use a very high quality product now. It's much thicker. Actually, our research indicates we build a home side by side, and our buyers choose the vinyl every time. To add hardy panel to the siding of one of these units adds about $7,500 to the cost of the unit, and the customers don't value that. They won't pay for it. I mean, I guess they will if that's their only choice, but given a choice, they don't want to pay for it. And so that's the same reason that we didn't put masonry on the entire foundation, is it drives up the cost. These units are so close together, you can't see the foundations down the side unless you're standing directly in between the units looking down at it. From the road, when they're like this and you're walking, you can't see the foundations down the side. So there's really no reason to add masonry there and drive up the cost for the customer. So that's really my speech of why it is the way that it is. The architects are adamant that it looks better this way. The fire department reviewed the plan and approved it. It meets the fire code, it meets the building code. So really, we're talking about anecdotal evidence and opinions, professional opinions that they may be, and we respect those. But that's why we didn't just make the wholesale change. There is a reason that we've done it this way, and we wanted to bring it to you this way, so you would have a chance to weigh in on the vision of recreating this true Charleston style neighborhood where they sit up closer, they're close together, people enter from the rear, and creates the really nice boulevard, and we find that really meets the needs of our entry-level people, that drives down the price point on these units. We hope to sell these units with a 2 in front of them, which is very hard to find in Wake County right now, especially for a single-family detached. So that's really it. If you have any questions for me.
Questions for this gentleman over here? Anybody? Okay, this side.
I have a question.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
So you're asking the council to choose aesthetics over safety?
I am not asking that. As a matter of fact, I said that this meets the building code, this meets the fire code. This specific plan was reviewed and approved by the fire department of Garner, and so we have taken in the safety concerns of everybody, and we've brought it. What we're talking about now is our opinions.
Which is safer? Which is safer?
Which is valid.
3 feet, 3 feet or 5 feet?
I do not know.
I'm going to be on 5 feet. And the thing that troubles me the most is that you all went before the Planning Commission twice, and they explained their concerns, which are the same that I think we're hearing up here, and they were ignored. And now you get up here in front of council and want to horse trade on a couple of these types of layouts. You've been in front of commission twice and ignored their recommendation. And I heard in the last meeting, on the basis of aesthetics. That's unacceptable.
Well, I would disagree with you that we ignored them.
We didn't incorporate it in the plan, so you pretty well ignored it.
Well,
That's what I call ignoring them.
maybe Miss Brad did say on the single-family front load, we realized we could accommodate the plan and go to the 5 feet. We're saying aesthetics, I don't know, maybe they're not important when you guys chose to buy your homes, but our buyers do take aesthetics very much into account. And so that is important to us, as is safety. So we brought it to you guys because to get your feedback, your choice. If we need to move them, we can talk about moving them. I'm coming to you now saying that our architects tell us that this plan is designed to be close together. It's designed to be as close together as they can. They will look the best. It'll create the best looking neighborhood. And that's the way they want it to be. And it does meet all the codes, and it was approved. That's why we continued to move forward. If the fire department had told us they had concerns, move them apart, we can't get behind this plan, that's what we would have done. They didn't tell us that. So we continued to move forward like this.
Okay. Anything else over here? We
I have one more other question. So you're saying that you've not heard, first of all, it doesn't meet the ordinance, right?
No, sir.
Right. And the ordinance is written for a reason, for aesthetics, but also for safety. The building code is a bare minimum. You want to go for the bare minimum. If it were 2.5 feet, you probably ask for 2.5 feet. But it doesn't even meet the ordinance. And you can't come before this council and say that those fire concerns, that's the first time you've heard those when it comes to vinyl siding and these setbacks that you're asking for.
I have heard those concerns in the past.
Okay. Mr. Vance? Okay.
I have no further questions for this gentleman here, but I do have questions for the transportation.
Okay, I was going to see if he wanted to come up next. Thank you, sir. You will state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Cole Daggerhart. I'm with Exalt Engineering, 304 West Millbrook Road, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. Perform the traffic impact analysis for this project. Be happy to answer any questions that you have, specific questions.
All right. The question I have is in reference to the improvements that are being, the improvements that are being made with the on Randall Road and on White Oak. Will there be any of the existing homes being relocated because of the improvements?
No, there will not be any homes relocated due to improvements being made by this project. I can't speak to, there is a future R2829 transportation improvement project being completed in the year 2029 by NCDOT and the North Carolina Turnpike Authority. I'm not sure of the impacts of that project, but this project will not impact homes.
Okay, all right. Okay, but I won't delve deep into the septic piece, but anyway, so this will, there will be no physical location of existing home caused by the improvements that you're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. Can you address possibly the concerns with the right-of-way that as it's laid out?
I believe Brad probably provided the best information there. Withers Ravenel coordinated directly with North Carolina Turnpike Authority to gather the right-of-way information from NCDOT. So they pulled the CAD lines directly from North Carolina Department of Transportation to develop their site plan. It is common, I would say, that in ArcGIS or GIS platforms that you can see right-of-way lines be off or dated.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Going this way. Any? All right. Okay. Anything here for this witness? Okay. All right. I believe that's all the questions for this witness. Are there any other witnesses for the applicant? Okay. Seeing, hearing none. Okay. Are there persons in the public who are here that we can ask for any witness? Okay. Recognize you, sir.
Was he sworn?
Excuse me?
Was he sworn in?
Yes. Were you, I believe you were sworn earlier, is that right?
No, I'm just here to comment on the whole project. We're the property owners.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, I don't have to swear him in, I don't guess, do I?
Yes.
Okay. Please step back to the clerk, if you will, and just be sworn there, sir, then we'll hear from you. Yes, sir, if you will. State your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm John Bennett. I live at 5813 Rayner Road, which is the entire project, that property you see there on the screen. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. On behalf of the Williams family, my wife Dawn Williams, and my stepson Blair House, they're here with me. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, I just want to go over a brief history of our property to let you know what's happened here, and also just do a closing remarks and then do a nice famous quote. That's it. I certainly support this project, by the way, and I just lost my notes. There it is. I certainly support this project, and I'm actually pretty excited about it. I wish when I was 30 years old I had a neighborhood like this to move into. It would have been great. By the way, that pond up there is great bass fishing. Just want you to know that. The brief history is the old Williams farmhouse on 5901 was built in 1913. That's 107 years ago. The land was bought by Johnny D. Williams, which is Elmo T. Williams' father. Love the name Elmo, right? So Elmo Thaddy Williams was born on October 8th, 1913. He was raised on the farm until age 12, and then moved into town in 1926 with his parents to live on Main Street. He also served in World War II as first lieutenant in the Army, assigned to the 2nd Cavalry. He landed at Normandy the day after, thank goodness. He has a dedication brick at the Garner Memorial Park. After the war, he worked at Winn-Dixie at 5 Points, and people came to know him as Mayor of 5 Points. So, he married Alice Dawn Hall of Pulaski, Virginia. She is now 96 and a half years old and currently living in Raleigh. We're on the farm to maintain the farm while she's living in assisted living. Elmo Williams, he was raised on the farm and he died on the farm. He died in the very house that we're living in, 5813, in his sleep at the age of 89, October 10th, 2002. Now, Dawn's grandfather, Johnny D. Williams, and his wife, Lily, lived at 419 Main Street next to the baseball park and operated a shoe general store on Main Street. Johnny's great-great-grandson, Blair Houts, in the back here, played at Garner baseball with Scotty McCreary. And Blair is also featured in a movie called The Horn that was made, I'm sorry, not The Horn, a film called Fox Hunter that's now on Netflix that was made in Raleigh. So the family has a lot of ties to the Raleigh area. Now, Dawn's great-grandmother, or great-grandfather, excuse me, William Gaston Williams, was born in Raleigh 1842 and he died February 20, 1920. He was married to Laura Smith, and Laura Smith's family, just a note, moved to St. Mary's Township in 1772, 4 years before independence. By the way, just a note, her father was named Orrin Aerosmith for all you rock and roll fans. They dropped the arrow off later and just named themselves Smith, so I thought that was interesting. But anyway, William Gaston, or Gaston Williams, was buried on the farm, the Williams farm, when he passed away. And that land is now owned by Mount Hermon Church. That was given to them by Elmo T. Williams, just given out of the goodness of his heart. Everything west of the Rayner Road that they own. Excuse me. Now, Gaston Williams was also a lieutenant of the North Carolina 31st Infantry during the Civil War. And he surrendered his regiment at Durham Station, Orange County on April 26, 1865, 17 days after the war was ended. And he became a farmer afterwards. It's a good thing we didn't build a statue in his honor on our farm in this day and age. Elmo's daughter, Dawn, in the background here, married a very handsome and sweet 20-year Navy veteran in 2001. That would be me. A little humor there. And we got married 30 days after 9/11, so that was interesting too. And I always said that Dawn married me because she wanted a full-time field hand. Somebody's got to mow all that grass. It's a lot of work. We had 4 horses on the property. We did a lot of hay, baling. We did a lot of grass cutting, a lot of sweat and tears on that farm. But before us, back in the days, it was a tobacco farm. Now, in closing, with the rich history of the Williams family line, or while the rich history of the Williams family line is certainly fascinating, the time has come for us to close this chapter of our lives and move forward. We're excited for the vision of what Mungo Homes has presented with the 3 mini parks and 1 full park, plus a pond, walkways, and the future greenway of White Oak off the north end of the property. There will be many more memories to create with the families who enjoy the property as much as the Williams family. Elmo will be tickled, pun intended, and smiling from heaven to see families enjoying themselves. By the way, the naming rights for the road was presented to Mr. Williams back in the days, and he passed on the right to a dentist by the name of Dr. Rayner, and henceforth Rayner Road. And I'll end this with the famous quote from Walt Disney. We keep moving forward, opening new doors, and doing new things, because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, sir. Was there another person who wanted to speak? Please come forward, sir. And state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is William Jackson. My address is 131 Ferndale Drive, Garner, North Carolina. I've been a resident of Legend Hills, which is the existing neighborhood, there for about 45 years now. I actually grew up in the neighborhood. My father owned 2 one-acre tracts, and as I was graduating high school, I was able to buy the last remaining parcels in the neighborhood on a 5.5-acre tract in that neighborhood. My background is I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering Services with the City of Raleigh. Been there almost 32 years. I hold a contractor's license in every trade, and I'm a commercial general contractor. So my biggest concern is not with the development of the neighborhood. It looks like a nice plan, you know, and you're right, growth has to continue on. But the traffic, I keep hearing, well, if it's needed about traffic. Right now, the current staging, turning out of the neighborhood to go right toward White Oak Road, you can't get out of the neighborhood. It is staged all the way back almost to the creek on a daily basis. That's with the current load, without the departments and without adding 333 more homes to the location. So even, and then in the future development, when they move the road, because of the topography, with the new alignment of another road in the future with the 540 project, it is that's going to be a very serious intersection to look at because of sight lines. So just wanted to make sure that, you know, my concern is getting in and out of the neighborhood. The traffic patterns are crazy. I grew up there. You're right, that is a beautiful pond on the backside. I remember before anybody was even living there. And it is a beautiful place and a big part of Garner. And we were glad to be annexed into Garner. Our current neighborhood has no water and sewer, and the traffic patterns are just the worst thing about it. Everything else is great, but the traffic, try to go out there at 4:30 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You cannot safely get out. There's numerous wrecks. It needs a traffic light now. And so as we add this additional, we should just consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay. Just a minute, Leo. Okay. Anyone else? I'll hear back, I believe, from the traffic engineer.
Sure. I just wanted to comment on the traffic signal request by this gentleman. We did analyze a potential traffic signal even prior to doing a signal warrant analysis, just to evaluate the effect on traffic. And with it's shown in the traffic impact analysis that a traffic signal at this location would improve levels of service to level of service D or better, which is the acceptable, which is the threshold required by North Carolina Department of Transportation. The North Carolina Department of Transportation, in their TIP project for the I-540 widening, they will realign. You see the gray realignment of Rayner Road to the west of where it currently intersects White Oak Road, to a new location to give distance between the Rayner Road, White Oak Road intersection and the I-540 ramps. And they have proposed a traffic signal in that project. As mentioned by staff, we would do a signal warrant analysis before the plat submittal, and if required by North Carolina Department of Transportation or the town to provide a traffic signal, that would be provided. It's committed to by the developer, and if NCDOT declines to have the signal installed, with which sometimes they do for a number of reasons, then it would be included in the R2829 project being built by North Carolina Turnpike Authority, with and then the developer has offered a $60,000 fee in lieu to support that signal in the future.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Question, what is the current level of service out there?
The current level of service under existing conditions is F.
Is F?
Yes, sir.
And with a traffic signal, you're saying that it will go to an E?
A level of service D.
D?
Yes,
D,
sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
So is that better?
It is. It's the acceptable level of service permitted by NCDOT. Level of service E or F is considered unacceptable.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, sir, come back up if you will, Mr. Martin.
Sorry, thank you. If I could, just circle back one last time to the discussion about the side setbacks. And I'd just like to say that we certainly had no intention on or desire to disregard or ignore Planning Commission recommendation. While we may have respectfully disagreed and that it is somewhat a subjective topic, we wanted to have the discussion in front of this body, but being a quasi-judicial proceeding, we really couldn't until we're here in this forum. So I appreciate the dialogue, and I think that those were made clear now. So I think it's a great project. We've come an awful long way, and just from a quick, conference with Chris and us, we certainly don't want to see a concern over a couple feet on a setback for 1/3 of the single-family units, be something that could derail a great project. So with Chris's consent, we would agree to that. We didn't necessarily think that it's required, but if it's felt that strongly, we're glad to agree to that because we still think it's a great project and would hate to see something like that get in the way. So that's it.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Questions, comments for him? Okay. I believe we've heard from all witnesses. Am I missing anybody at this point in time? Council members, any last comments before I'm going to close the public hearing and call for a motion? Mr. Matthews.
What the gentleman just said, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. And sadly, we haven't all deal with the conditions here, and I hate these things worse than anybody, especially at my age. I have a hell of a time breathing. But did I hear you correctly said after your group had a conference, are we agreeing with the recommendations of the staff? Is that what did I hear you correctly?
Yes, sir. We would agree to the recommendation that staff and that the Planning Commission added along with their recommendation for approval with 5-foot aggregate, 10-foot minimum side setbacks for all of the single family.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard it right.
Yes,
okay,
thank you.
Front load and rear load?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jay, other comments, quick questions, council?
Could I add one more thing, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, go ahead.
Our town is growing by leaps and bounds, and this is very typical of what we're going to see in the future of as we reflect back some of the projects like we did out on 401 South and other areas, that the new generation, they're not looking at those half-acre lots like we do, and like I did. If I had to go back with it, I'd probably look at things differently. But this is the new what's happening in Wake County and Garner, and as we're growing over here, everybody has traffic issues. I hate them. We've got them everywhere. Every town has got them. We got our share of them. Fortunately, we got a southern loop coming through here. Hopefully, it's going to help us in some ways. And where this is the intersection here, I think that could help out tremendously. I can see a lot of these people moving in here might be working out at Amazon for it's over with, because all these people, 2,400 of them, they've got to have some place to stay. If they don't, they're going to be traveling in here. If they're here, they still got to travel out there. Either way, transportation is a big deal, and there's no way around that. And it's just a growth issue. We're going to go all over Wake County, and we can't turn down every project because of transportation. I know we all have are sensitive about some of these things, and we all got our issues that we're concerned about, and it's fine. That's why we got this board up here. We represent everybody, and to hear all the different views. But people are moving in Wake County. It's probably close to 100 a day now. And Garner is right now on the tip of the iceberg. That's why Amazon's out here, and many more businesses are coming out here. And it's been transportation issues from Amazon to here to everywhere we had a project. So all I'm just saying to my fellow board members, transportation is going to be a little tough. We're going to have to work our way through it. The whole state's working their way through it. And there's a shortage of money, and there's not a lot of state-maintained roads going to get a lot of work done on them. And those are not our roads, so we can't do anything with them. So we're going to have to work together on that as far as traffic is concerned. But this is the new model of building in Wake County and in Garner, where you can take a project like this and fit it in between an existing road and a major thoroughfare, that's amazing piece of work to me just to look at it and all the amenities it's bringing. Very familiar with that area. I've been in that Mount Hermon Church many of a time over there back during the days. But I would encourage our board here, since they are stepping up here and listening to recommendations, they've heard us out, and you know, we're serious about those things that we're concerned with. And if it's approved by the fire department, it has met all the standards, I would encourage us to move forward on this project and see where it can go from here. All of them are not going to be perfect, but everybody's doing their due diligence. They've listened to our board now, they've heard us now, so I think we've got a working relationship established here and with our staff that we can clear up any of these items. So I would encourage my fellow board members to really consider approval on this project, because I have no vested interest in it other than I think it's a good project. The location's perfect and the timing is probably really good for this time. So that's just my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for indulging me.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Anyone else while they're waiting? I would just say I like to ride out to these places when I know a hearing's coming up, and I was able to ride out there yesterday. It's a beautiful area out there, beautiful piece of property, and could be used for this great purpose. But it's up to the council. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Mr. Tellinger, go ahead.
In not direct response to my colleague, Mr. Matthews, but transportation is not an issue that you just throw your hands up and say, well, we're going to have problems, and so let's throw another log on the fire. It's strangling other towns. Fuquay and some other places are just not handling it because they're just, we got to grow, and this is how we have to grow. And what we have here in this specific project is a project that's in the middle of an already transportation challenged area that is going to continue to be transportation challenged for the next 10 years. And what it's going to do is add congestion up 2 other roads and inhibit construction of maybe bigger or better projects up those roads because it's anchored down here in the corner of the town. It's not good planning on the part of the town to put this sort of vanilla residential development at what's going to be a major interstate exchange. If you drive anywhere through the triangle, you drive all around interstates, what do you see at interstate exchanges? You see office buildings, you see mixed use, you see high density, because that's where you want people to get on and off. We're not there yet. We're 10 years away from it. But what we're doing again is sabotaging our future tax base. 1, because we're just putting regular residential there. 2, we already had in our comprehensive plan that there should be high density in this area. So we're trying to change the zoning into something that's higher density than what it is, but lower density than what our own comprehensive plan says is allowed in that area. What happens when you allow this is you turn Garner into just another bedroom community where these people hop off, go somewhere else to work at their business, generate tax revenue over there, and homeowners and the residents of the town end up having to pay, over time, pay higher taxes because we're not developing our commercial base. On specifics with regards to the UDO, planned development districts, the development proposed in the master plan is compatible with the character of the surrounding land uses. It says, and maintains and enhances the value of surrounding properties. It's not an or, it's an and. Is it compatible with the character of the surrounding land uses? It's not. The other piece is, under the same section, town council is not obligated to accept or approve any variation if it deems such variation to be inappropriate. Where such standards vary by more than 20% from the otherwise acceptable numeric standard, this is important, a specific finding in the council approval as to the acceptability of such a variation shall be required. There's so many variations in this proposal because they're using what I think is an inappropriate zoning choice for this project. So we're having to make all these variations, but we have to justify all of them. I don't think that it's compatible with our transportation plan. I think it creates more traffic. There are other, it just is not, they already have congestion, and we're just gonna add more. That is not what our transportation plan says. Our transportation plan doesn't say where there's over capacity, continue to add more capacity. And the last point is, again, on the existing zoning allows for higher density, and we're just baking in medium density, where in the future there's an opportunity for more. And I understand it's what people do, and they know how to do now. Developers come in, they don't know how to build vertically, they don't know how to do these things, so they just do what they do everywhere. And we end up paying the price because that's just sprawl. It's just sprawl. And we keep approving stuff like that that isn't consistent with our growth plans, isn't consistent with our transportation plans. We're all going to be choking in traffic, and nobody wants it. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Challenger. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say that, did the staff hear the proposed recommendations? You clear on those? Okay.
Okay, clarify. Yep, okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to close the public.
I'll say one thing.
Mr. Mayor, you're muffled. I can't hear you too well. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. No, I was just accepting your comment, and I was getting ready to close the public hearing,
Okay.
but I'll hear from Ms. Singleton.
I was just saying, there were two items that the staff mentioned that they had concern about. One was the setback and one was the masonry requirement on the foundation. So both of those, if this is going to move forward, both of those will have to be added as additional conditions. I'm not going to waver on making changes to what we currently do and have allowed on those situations. Also, having the study for the signalization is good, but we all know that if DOT says they don't want it there, we can't make anyone put it there because they're two state roads. So, isn't that correct? It's a traffic engineer, that's correct. We may say it, but unless DOT approves it, the signal will not go there.
That's correct, unless it's
Right, okay. So even though that, it sounds like a signal will be a good, be an improvement out there to increase the level of service from an F to a D, that unless DOT signs off on it, the town has no control over that.
add to that though, when the signal. To add to that, when the signal warrant is performed, if the signal does meet 8-hour warrants, 4-hour warrants, and 2-hour warrants, NCDOT, in most situations where the warrants are met, they do require a traffic signal. So it's say in just a 2-hour warrant or just a 4-hour warrant is met, which means that traffic is bad for 2 hours or perhaps 4 hours, but not 8 hours. Sometimes NCDOT does not require one. So depending on whether the warrant is met, they do make their decision based off of the data.
Okay, and also, this study will not happen until school starts again, but that might be a long way down the road because the way school starts this year may not be the same as what it normally is. So traffic, typical school bus traffic, typical carpool traffic, sounds like it's going to be greatly altered this year. So I think we all need to recognize that this study may not take place in September, October of 2020, and maybe 2021 or some other time.
That's correct, and we would coordinate with the town and NCDOT to perform the study whenever it's thought to be best to perform that study. We have, in some cases, used historical data and used growth rates to take count data from other locations and grow it. Due to the nature of that's possible for a traffic impact analysis, but due to the nature of a signal warrant analysis, you're really looking for hourly data on traffic at that location, and that would be a difficult exercise to do.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Singleton. Anybody else?
The final clarification on the setbacks, the side setbacks, that's for every housing type, the townhomes and the proposed rear load and the front load?
So for the townhomes being different because they're obviously the common walls, there's a 0 setback, but the townhome setbacks, there's already an aggregate setback between the townhome building groups that's larger than that has not been a source of discussion or concern. So the concern has only been related to the setback between buildings. And
Why was the deviation requested for the townhomes from the 6 feet?
So offhand, and pardon me, I'm thumbing through my PDR book so I don't misstate it, and Stacy or Jeff may know it offhand better than I, but I can get to that section here in a sec. Thanks, Stacy.
It's 1 foot, but I'm just curious as to why there was
The standard setback for townhomes is 15 feet on each unit, so 30 feet between buildings.
Okay. All right. Mr. Baggett, correct me if I'm correct here, as I close the meeting, we would have 2 separate motions, or we would start with the zoning motion first, is that right?
That's correct.
Anything else, Stacy?
No, sir, I was just going to switch this to the
Oh,
motion
okay.
slide.
All right. Thank you.
I still have a question about the setbacks on the townhomes, because
Okay, one more.
what I'm reading is the side, it's 5 feet on end units. So I'm confused. Explain the townhomes piece to me, because I don't understand it.
So typically, the setback is 15 feet on each one, so 30-foot separation. I think they've proposed, I had to go back and look at it.
5.
Is it
My understanding was that the requirements were not necessarily a standard townhome, but were for R12 setback requirements, which are 30 front, 20 rear, 6 foot minimum, 15 foot aggregate. It doesn't seem to distinguish, and I could be wrong because I'm not used to that.
There's a separate section for townhomes, a separate standard that overrides the base zoning.
For R1, for R12.
R12, for
Okay.
any residential zone.
That's what I was asking.
That's
That's
correct.
what I was asking. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, okay. Close the public hearing and ask the council, what is your pleasure in regards to the motion? The first motion would be proper as relates to the zoning issue.
Mr. Mayor, I find it consistent with the comprehensive plan and approve. Find consistent with the comprehensive plan and approve. I move that the town council accept the staff's statement regarding zoning consistency with the Garner Ford comprehensive plan detailed in section 5 of the staff report as our own. And I therefore move further that the town council adopt ordinance number 2020-4066, approving rezoning request PD-Z-19-04, as it is reasonable and in the public interest because it will likely allow housing, living, and supporting daycare uses that are attractive to young families and with children, as well as older residents looking to maintain private but smaller outdoor spaces, allow adequate buffers and sustainable open spaces that could help to preserve and protect adjacent housing stock, allow the development of appropriate density of housing in the area in which it is located.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Motion properly made, and I believe, Mr. Matthews, you seconded the motion? Okay, seconded by Mr. Matthews. All right. I think we've already had our discussion, but I'll hear from...
Time out. Because in the zoning conditions, it talks about the setback and it talks about the masonry foundation. So if we're going to take the staff recommendations of what staff said, then that needs to be changed in this zoning motion, because that's part of the zoning conditions.
Okay.
If we're going to take the staff recommendations that Mr. Triesenberg mentioned to begin with the setbacks, And also the masonry treatment on the foundation, and not do the painting and parge, but doing what we normally do. And that needs to be included in this motion because that is part of the ordinance 2020-4066 to rezone it. There's zoning conditions, so that need to be changed in the zoning conditions. So it's clear that if I ask Mr. Vance to amend his motion to incorporate both of the issues that Mr. Triesenberg mentioned that were concerns with staff in regards to one, the setbacks is touched on here by all of us, and Mr. Dellinger has focused on correctly, in my opinion, and also on the treatments on the foundation. Will you amend your motion to include what staff minimums were? Excuse me, okay, Mr. Hodges.
Just want to ask a clarification. I may have missed it, but I did not hear anything from the applicant that was agreeing to any change to the foundation. I think we heard explicitly the agreement on the
But we're not asking the
setbacks.
applicant, we're making the conditions set. It's us, it's
So
our
I just
ability
wanna
to
make
do
sure
that,
that-
not his choice, it's our choice.
Yes, sir, and I just want to make
Okay,
sure that
just
we
wanna
get
make
the
that very
wording,
clear, too.
that we get the wording from staff, that before you agree to it, that we get wording that you agree on from staff.
I want the word, that what Mr. Triesenberg mentioned, I think Ms. Harper's aware of, and Mr. Bamford's aware of what we're talking about, correct?
I
Before
think
we,
we need, I
variance
think we
from what we
need,
currently
I think
do.
we need clarification on exactly the wording that we would, we
All
are
right.
seeking agreement on for the foundation.
Would somebody read that?
yeah, is Mr. Triesenberg still there, or is he the proper person to,
Yes, he is.
for Stacy?
Mr. Mayor, could we do
Because
a
I think we
quick
would need-
recess for them to get that straight?
Can we do,
Yes, we could.
can we do a recess, Mr. Mayor, it'd be appropriate to do a recess and make sure we get this language correct?
Okay, it's going to take a little while to do that. Okay,
It's 9 o'clock anyway. It's 9 o'clock, sir.
I'm sorry.
It's 9 o'clock, so break. Yes, recess. I agree with you.
Okay, the request of council, I will recess this hearing for 10 minutes. Come back in 10 minutes, and staff will work out the wording that Councilmember Singleton referred to, right? Thank you. Recess. I believe the proper course of action right now is to hear again from the applicant in regards to the previous discussion about the amended wording in the motion, and I believe we have some information that you want to share with us, right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group, here working on behalf of the applicant. 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 530, Raleigh 27601. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and provide what little value that I can in this process, because I'm not a planner or an engineer. But we have worked with the staff to try to work out language on conditions associated with this case that we are adding to the case. And so the first I want to clarify, and that is with respect to the setback conversation that you all had, and that is that Mungo Homes has essentially offered updated conditions to provide for a minimum 5 and aggregate 10-foot side yard setback for all of the single-family detached product. That's the front-loaded as well as the alley-loaded detached products. So all of the detached product will have that minimum 5 and aggregate 10-foot setback. In addition, with respect to foundation treatments, a condition reading that all front facades will be treated with masonry, stone, or brick, and that all side facades that face a street or alley be treated with masonry, stone, or brick. And I would like to ask the staff to confirm that they are comfortable with that language. I believe that was the language that I was reading off of the screen, but my penmanship is a little bit worse than theirs, and neither of them are great, so I want to confirm that's the case.
Yes, sir, that is.
Staff good with
Great,
that?
so those are the updated conditions associated with this case, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Any quick questions? If not, okay, thank you. I think the proper course of action at this time, we did have a motion on the floor that potentially could be amended, or as I understand it, if Mr. Vance wants to withdraw his original motion and restate the motion consistent now with the new understanding that we just have from the applicant and staff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I wish to withdraw my motion.
Okay. If there's no opposition, I'm going to say motion granted. Okay, sir. You still have the floor?
Yes, I'd like to restate my motion. I move that the town council accept the staff statements regarding the zoning consistent with the Garner Ford comprehensive plan detailed in section 5 of the staff report as our own, and I therefore move forward that the town council adopt ordinance number 20204066 approving rezoning request PD Z 1904 as it is reasonable and in the public interest because it's likely to, and also I'd like to consider the updated conditions as provided by the applicant. It's likely to allow household living and supporting daycare uses that are attractive to the younger families with children as well as older residents looking to maintain private but smaller outdoor spaces, allow adequate buffers and usable open spaces that help to preserve and protect the adjacent housing stock, allow development of an appropriate density of housing in the area in which it is located, and allow for the conservation and preservation of natural features and green space to promote recreational opportunities.
Okay, motion properly made.
And I'll
Is
second.
there a second? Mr. Matthews seconds. Okay. Almost hesitant to ask, but is there any further discussion, clarification needed, council, at this point? Okay, based on the motion that is properly before us, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's opposition, please say no.
No.
Okay. I don't think we have to call the roll, do we?
No, you can,
I declare,
you can
yeah.
determine that it's
Yep.
passed.
Determined that the majority of the council voted in favor of the motion with one dissenting vote. So the motion properly passes, and it is so ordered on the rezoning motion. Now we come to the conditional use permit motion worksheet. Council care to offer a motion in regards to the conditional use permit?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to find consistent with the town plans and ordinance and approve. I move the council accept the staff statements regarding plan consistent in section 7 of this report as our own and find the application meets the 10 permit criteria in section 3.14.d and therefore approve PD MP 1904 Randall Road with the 8 conditions to be listed on the permit that will be prepared by staff.
Okay, motion properly made again by Mr. Vance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Matthews seconds the motion. Any other question, comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion before you at this time, please say aye.
Aye.
If there is opposition, please say no. Okay, one dissenting vote noted. The motion properly carries, and it is so ordered. That matter, I believe, is fully dispatched and dispensed of, and we'll move to the next item on the agenda at this time. I want to just thank all of you for your indulgence as we went through a long hearing and the sort of give and take that occurred. We don't always agree on these things, and I respect the various opinions of council, but I am pleased that we're able to eventually move through the process. So we wish you well as you move forward with this project. Okay, thank you for your time. Okay, next item of business will be, I don't think there's any new old business that I'm aware of. Do you have any, Mr. Manager? Nothing?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Committee reports. Are there any committee reports at this time?
HR?
HR committee, yes, Mr. Vance?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that Councilman Dillinger and I went on last week, 2 days, and had interviews of 10 very strong applicants for 3 positions on the, in particular, the Planning Commission, and they were all strong, and it was a tough decision to be made, but we selected 3 to fill the positions that are going to be vacant, and those individuals are Ms. Gina Advent, Mr. Philip Jefferson, and Mr. Michael Volan. Again, we had some very strong applicants who I believe will be will be in the future great assets when it comes to the volunteer commissions and boards. And we just encourage them to, to stay connected to the town in some fashion when it comes to volunteerism, so that their skills and their energy can be used in the future.
Okay.
I just want to agree with Mr. Vance. We had some amazing applicants, and I also want to thank Town Clerk Ms. Gibson and Deputy Clerk Knott for setting up those interviews smoothly on a short notice. We banged through them pretty quickly. I also want to thank Jeff Triesenberg, who was able to sit in on every one of those interviews and give us feedback on the right fit with given complementary skill sets of the existing commission. It was a great process, and it was a pleasure, as always, to work with Mr. Vance, too. So,
Okay. Ms. Gibson, did you get all those names? Okay, you have them? And council, you heard those. That comes a recommendation that this council approve those 3 persons to serve on the planning commission.
On the
Am I
planning,
right on
sir.
that? Okay. All right, so the motion is before us by Mr. Vance. Is there a second? Did you second it, Mr. Dellinger? Okay, any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion before us, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and it is so ordered. Thank you, gentlemen, for your work there. I've served on that committee in the past. It's an interesting one to serve on, and as you said, a very important one. So we look forward to welcoming those people to that committee. Okay, Mr. Manager, we'll hear from you now.
Okay, you have Garner info in your packet with a list of items there we're working on. And then also you have a capital project status report, and I'm going to call the town engineer, Chris Johnson, up to talk about what may have changed since the last time you were given this report.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So yes, we've got our quarterly update. So some of the highlights here, as you may know, the New Rand Road, Garner Road Sidewalk Project is ongoing. We've got some right now, some gas line relocation work being done along both New Rand and Garner Road. And as soon as those lines are relocated, our roadway contractor will be getting back to work. So we're hoping that they might be able to start back as early as next week on the Garner Road portion, and then moving directly over to New Rand as soon as that area is clear. We've also we've finished up the Spring Drive Sidewalks project, so that one is all completed. Vandora Springs Road Sidewalk project, that was the one you may remember that we've been had some time delay to get an agreement with Raleigh Water to add a water line relocation along that project. So that agreement is in place, and our consultant is working to incorporate those water line design revisions so that we can move into the next stage, which would be the land acquisition phase. So we're hoping to start that up very soon.
And Mr. Johnson, on that sidewalk,
yes,
we hope to start construction next spring. Is that correct? Is that one?
This one we are showing to possibly start, as far as starting work, would probably be early next year, yes.
Okay.
Hopefully awarding the project by the end of this year.
Okay, because I know the completion is fall of 2021, so that's...
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And then you might have noticed Timber Drive Connector Sidewalk is in progress, so they've started at the western end at Blanton Street and are working their way east. So that project's going along very well. We've got the Aversboro Road project that we are currently trying to get started. I think that one's actually already been incorporated as a change order into the resurfacing contract, so that one will be getting done very soon. We've also made some strides on the Buffalo Road Greenway crossing. So this was one of the items that had been a topic of conversation on council. We've worked out an agreement with DOT to do a crossing that's very similar to what we recently approved down the road at the YMCA. We're working to get together a submittal to have them look at that, and then we'll bring that back to you once it's approved so that we can have a final decision on how to move forward with that project. But that's just doing some side pavement markings and a RRFB, which is rectangular rapid flashing beacon at that
now
location.
again, tell me where is that the one I was asking you about, or I think I'm thinking of the one at Timber Crossing.
No, you
and
were
and
at
the
Buckingham and Timber.
Yes, okay.
This one's down
I hope
at
you'll comment on
Havers-
that too. but-
This is at White Deer Park.
Okay.
The
You
one,
said White Deer Park?
yes.
This is the Phil Matthews.
You-
this is the
you-
Phil
you-
Matthews.
Matthews
Yes, this is the Phil
This is Phil
Matthews.
Matthews signal project.
You'll be my hero.
So following up with you, Mayor, on Timber Drive, that one has been approved by DOT, and we have reached out to see if we can get pricing on that, to bring that back to council very soon for possible change order as well to the resurfacing contract.
Could you explain briefly what's going to happen there? Is that,
Sure. The existing crossing at Buckingham would be
Yes.
relocated several hundred feet west on Timber Drive down to where, very close to where the Greenway outlets onto Timber Drive, and we'll make use of the existing grassed median there to install a pedestrian refuge so that people will be able to cross 2 lanes at a time and stop in the middle
Right.
with a safe haven. And then we will be moving those existing signage that's solar powered as well down to that new location.
thank you. Yeah, I had at least 2 people call me, and I think there was a pretty bad wreck there.
Yes,
Just
there
within the
was,
last
a
several days,
motorcycle
somebody was
accident.
seriously injured or whatever, but thank you. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Garner Recreation Site, we're still trying to just finish the punch list, mostly with the roof leaks has been the outlier there that's been continuing. We've got to get the guardrail installed on US 70, and then they would finish, there was some, a line that had to be relocated. In addition to the power line, we had a conflict with the gas line. So they've gotten that taken care of. We've made some changes slightly to the guardrail. So as soon as that gets installed, then they'll finish the remaining seating and mulching work along that corridor. Then the last remaining items will be the roof on the Garner Recreation Center, and then the GPAC bioretention area repairs that we still need to finish up. And then there's just a couple other small items left in the building.
Contractors coming out tomorrow, I believe.
They were supposed to be out there today, but I did not see them out there today, so. Then the stormwater projects, we've completed the design for those projects, and we're going to be looking to figure out the funding and moving those projects into the construction phase. We've got a couple smaller projects we're working with Public Works on, that they've done some work already, but there's also going to be some work that needs to be contracted out. So we're still working through that, and we'll bring that to council at such time it's ready to go.
Mr. Johnson, so the 2 working with Public Works is the Meadowbrook Casey Street issue where the stormwater, the drain collapse, and also the Staunton Meadow issue.
Correct.
That's the 2 you're working on.
Correct.
Okay, that's 2
And
Public Works.
they've done some work, they've done some clean out of the pipe systems, but they feel that they've exhausted their in-house capabilities, and there's a couple things that they'd like to get done by contracting it out to a third party.
But we do hope that those projects will be completed sometime this calendar year.
We hope so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The resurfacing contract has been going great. I think we had about 17 or 18 streets on the list, and we're down to 3 as of today, and I believe they're working out on Foxwood today. I don't know how far they got, but then the last remaining streets are in Eagle Ridge. So that contract's been going very well. And right now they're working on some, mostly curb ramps in Eagle Ridge is going to be the next couple weeks, because that's where the bulk of concrete work we had on the project. The rest is mostly NCDOT related. So I've just sort of updated a lot of those project statuses as we could find. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions y'all may have.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Johnson?
Oh, I saw them working on Foxwood. I had to cut through there, and they may be finished now. They were working last week, and they were making a lot of progress.
Right.
Those look a whole lot better.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, was there anything else?
Have a building progress report in the packet also. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is you may have received some correspondence about a project that's in Raleigh's zoning district.
Yes.
That's adjacent to Garner, adjacent to North Garner, and there were some concerns about the density of that project. And right now, we would encourage those residents, they get notified, just like we notify residents here, to send in public comment and to also attend any public meetings. I think that's slated for apartments on that side. adjacent to them, adjacent to the north. Cloverdale.
Cloverdale,
Adjacent
yeah.
to Cloverdale, at the end of Tryon Road there. So encourage them to participate in that process.
That's strictly within the purview of the city of Raleigh, right?
Correct, it
Yep.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
While that is in City of Raleigh, there is some interest that the staff is following because there are stub outs. 2 streets in Cloverdale do stub out to this property, and that was done years ago when that was built. So the staff will follow this through its processes with Raleigh, and then they'll do a report on any issues that they see with what's being proposed.
One of those stub outs is Northview Street.
Yeah.
But
Staff.
Is there in their proposal, they want to extend those to the new neighborhood? Is that Sutherland and Northview?
It's Northview and the next street down, and I need
Randall? Randall?
maybe Randall. Is
Randall, was it
Randall dead ends, that's just how I happen to know. I know Northview because I do that in Meals on Wheels loop, but
just where Northview turns up to go to this property, just beyond it, and I don't have a map in front of me, I'm sorry.
So what is the town's role in connecting roads to another city's subdivision?
I don't think we've dealt with that I haven't dealt with that too often, so that might be something.
So it was originally designed to stub out to the connecting property like we do in most cases. So what staff is going to do is monitor any proposed connections and what's being proposed in terms of density and use for the land, to monitor to make sure that they don't see adverse issues. Mr. Triesenberg's on also if he'd like to comment on that any further.
Are we required to connect? Like, it's kind of a weird situation.
yeah.
So with the right-of-way stub now, there's really nothing can do to prevent the connection to the error. They technically don't have to come into our jurisdiction with that connection. So yeah, we'll have to take a good look at it. Not sure, given the shape of the property, exactly how the proposal will lay out. Tryon Road will be traversing property from east to west. So my guess is that there may or may not be a whole lot of development directly adjacent to the neighborhood. It just depends on where they push the road. So it could just be as simple as providing folks an outlet to the new Tryon Road, but we haven't seen the proposal yet.
So we put a city limit sign there?
You can, yeah.
Yeah, what that's worth.
I don't know,
I
it's
mean,
unusual.
Northview, it's not a cul-de-sac at the end, it's round, because years ago, you may remember there was a storm that was torn up in Fran that we had to work on to get torn down. And they
Yes.
built a nice new
Oh,
home there,
yes,
just
yes,
got built the
yes.
last couple of years.
Yeah.
And so I see where it can connect. And Randall Road, if my memory serves me right, Randall Road, I mean, these were built in the 60s, so it's dead end into the woods. I just think it's unusual that we're gonna connect a road that's been there 60 years and connect it to another subdivision.
But that's my question, like, if it's a town road, right?
Yes.
Those are town roads?
Yes.
So I would imagine unless it goes straight up to the Raleigh city limits, then you don't have to do anything. And I don't know,
I don't know either. I think we're more trying to find out, do we have to connect to them? Are we required to connect to it?
I don't think that there's any requirement, but I don't know that there's anything that can necessarily prevent it either.
Well, who owns the property, say at Northview, who owns that property? Town of Garner or the city of Raleigh?
So the parcel that's immediately at the end of the stub is part of the development proposal.
Northview stubs directly into a piece of property that is in the city of Raleigh.
Okay.
And Randall does the same?
And the persons who've inquired about that obviously need to address their concerns with the city of Raleigh. At a hearing, I believe somebody's already identified.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other outlets for public comment.
Letters were recently sent out for a public meeting that the developer was having, and we believe that that is probably what generated
Okay.
the contacts that the council has received. So the manager just want to make sure that anybody listening knew to participate in that meeting and share their views. And we also just want to let you know we're analyzing the street connectivity portion because it is very unusual. We don't have many places where we directly abut a development opportunity in another jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Sure enough, let me see.
That's all I have.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Mr. Baggett, did you have any reports?
I don't have a report, Mr. Mayor, but I would like to ask if everybody plans to be here in person next Tuesday for the special meeting. Yes. Pardon me?
Monday.
Is it Monday?
Yeah,
The 13th.
Yeah. I asked because we'll really have to work hard on our procedure if any of you weren't going to be here.
It's 7 next Monday evening. Plan to be here, yes.
Yeah, is that right?
That's correct.
I know it's the 13th. I thought it was
7 o'clock.
That's right, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I
I'm
asked you if
sorry.
you could make it at 7 and not 6.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all.
Everybody plans to be here in person, I believe you were asking at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was that it, Mr. Baggett?
Yes, sir.
Okay, council reports. I'll start with Mr. Matthews.
I have nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Singleton?
Question for staff, we're going to see at the July work session master plans recommendations by the consultant for both Jurgen Park and Meadowbrook, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that's right. I mean, they're not 100% final. The consultant is bringing them to you, when they're close enough that you can see, more or less what they're thinking, but before they're final, so they can get your feedback and input.
I was going to say, can we get that early? I don't want to get it, the night before the meeting. I mean, can we get it? I mean, this has been through the Parks and Rec Committee, correct? They've seen some of it. I'd like to
Yes.
see some of it too.
Yeah, well, like I said, we will try to make sure that you get that in advance, but this is, like I said, it's not 100% final, but,
Well,
yeah.
it's not final because we hadn't seen it yet and say we like this or don't like that or whatever. So
Sure.
I understand that. I'd like to get it sooner than later.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Behringer?
Yes, sir, I'd like to refer back to the gentleman who came to speak under petitions and comments about the firecrackers and the fireworks at his home. If his house truly is 10 feet from the fire pit next door, we need to be sure that doesn't go unaddressed. That's ridiculous. And fireworks going off right beside his house, and if the police truly did say to him, "We'll go to another room," that was an extremely inappropriate response. So I hear the firecrackers. We have gunshots and we have fireworks on Center Street, and then this past Saturday night, Friday night and Saturday night, on the Nextdoor app, we were getting reports about fireworks on Avery Street, disturbing pets, and also veterans who are having issues with PTSD. So we need to make some kind of a statement or position stronger than what we've been making about people just randomly using the fireworks wherever they feel like it, whenever they feel like it. And it's not just July 3rd, it's every weekend. So we need some attention there. And if that gentleman truly does live as close to that house where that's going on as he said he did, then we need to do something to help him. And also, I think I may not have communicated real clearly last week when I asked for the median between the north and southbound lanes on Benson Road at Garner Road to be mowed. The grass around it on the sides have been mowed, but not that little median in the middle. So we have little yellow flowers blooming, and the median is not in good shape as it is. It probably could be just completely dug up and it would be okay. But if we could get that to look a little bit neater. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a stray cat issue in my neighborhood, and it's multiplied, it's doubled since the COVID-19 restrictions have been in place. If anybody has any influence with the SPCA or anybody else who would take stray animals, let us trap them and take them. Please use your influence.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger.
Just one quick question about, I know some municipalities in the county have opened COVID testing sites, and I was wondering if if Garner were offered one, would we have a facility that could handle sort of a drive-through or walk-in testing scenario, like Avery Street or something?
We could find something. It doesn't have to be a town property. It could be just a property that's not being used, so.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure if they're still offering that, but we can check.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of anything imminent, per se, but I'm just curious if that's something we had the capacity somewhere to do if an opportunity were there, so. That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Vance?
Today I received a call from a citizen that's still showing their gratitude for the rapid response that Public Works did several weeks ago in taking care of a safety situation in the road, and just want to let the Public Works know that the work they're doing is appreciated by citizens, and the quick response and to their concerns.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think that covers everybody. I'll just mention a couple of things very quickly. I'd like to thank Parks and Rec and Cultural Resources and whoever else was involved in the virtual Independence Day celebration. Hope many of you had a chance to see the broadcast of that over the July 3rd, July 4th time. Some of you may have noticed the plane that was flying overhead. I saw it
buzzed my house a couple of times.
Yeah, close to mine too, Phil. So I thought he was just flying over the mayor's house. No, I'm teasing. Not at all. But no, it was very nice. So I guess the second thing I would say, sort of maybe a tag on to what Mr. Dellinger mentioned about COVID-19. I want to encourage our citizens in Garner to obviously, the town is setting some standards as it relates to coming in our building, wearing a mask, and still being very conscious of physical distancing, social distancing if you prefer. And I encourage all of our citizens. I hear people at times complain about the uncomfortableness of the mask, but I think if you will heed medical advice and good information, it's something that we all need to be very conscious of, and as your mayor, I intend to do my part to be involved in those kinds of practices, and all of our citizens need to take that very seriously. It's always concerning when we hear spikes in some of the really problems that we're having, not only obviously in this state, but in several other places. So ask our citizens to be very attentive to that and do their part to follow the guidelines that we have before us. With that being said, I believe the only item left is a closed session item. So I believe we are arranging the closed session to be in this area. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Mr. Stallings is on Teams, and so if it's the council's willing to just remain in this room, we're just going to turn off the feed and then let you know.
Okay, I'm going to gavel
Mr. Mayor,
this open session to close. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, we need to have a motion. I move we go to closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, subset A, subset 4, to discuss economic development.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So ordered. We're now moving into closed session as soon as I get the signal from Mr. Hodges. Open session. After going into closed session, the council conferred with our economic development director on a potential project, and we gave him some instruction that we will expect to follow up on as things materialize. Any other items of business to come before this council? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.